Imagine a Europe in 1914 where one nation seems poised to dominate the continent. Germany, at the height of its imperial power, had a military unlike any other. Its army was not only the largest and most disciplined in continental Europe, but it was trained by a tradition of victories that stretched back decades. From the crushing triumphs against Austria in the 1860s to the stunning defeat of France in 1871, German soldiers carried a confidence forged in battlefield experience. On paper, no nation could match them. The backbone of this power was not just the men, but the machine that supported them. Germany had built the most sophisticated logistics network in Europe, capable of moving troops, artillery, and supplies with precision that rivaled any modern army. Railways crisscrossed the empire, linking industrial centers to front lines in ways the Allies could only envy. Factories churned out weapons, shells, and uniforms at a pace unmatched in 1914, creating a supply advantage that few contemporaries fully appreciated. Every train that rumbled toward the border was a reminder that Germany could strike swiftly and sustain campaigns longer than most imagined. But raw numbers and factories tell only part of the story. Germany's officers were professional, rigorously trained, and strategically educated in war colleges that emphasized decisive victories and the art of maneuver. Generals studied every major conflict in European history and believed that speed, surprise, and concentrated force could achieve what brute strength alone never could. Their confidence was infectious and their planning meticulous. They believed in the Schlieffen plan, a strategy designed to knock France out of the war in weeks, and their calculations seemed flawless in theory. Yet beneath this veneer of perfection lay the tension of human decision. The Kaiser's generals debated endlessly over how to apply their strengths. Should they strike first against France, risking Belgium's neutrality, or focus on Russia, whose vast armies seemed slow but inexorably growing? Every choice carried immense risk. Even small misjudgments could ripple into disaster. Despite the structural advantages that Germany held, the path to victory depended not just on industrial might or disciplined troops, but on the ability of leaders to make the right decisions under unprecedented pressure. Even Germany's technological edge was formidable. Early aircraft like the Fokker Eindecker gave them the first taste of air superiority, and new artillery designs allowed German forces to deliver devastating barrages with remarkable accuracy. Communication systems, including telegraph and signal networks, allowed battlefield coordination that seemed almost prophetic to commanders used to chaos. Every tool, every soldier, every factory seemed aligned for a swift, decisive campaign. The nation was armed with everything needed for a stunning early war advantage, and yet the true test was only beginning. And yet, history shows us that advantage on paper does not guarantee triumph. As we explore the course of the First World War, it becomes clear that the true story is as much about human misjudgment and chance as it is about guns and rails. In 1914, Germany had the means to dominate Europe, but the question remained, would its leaders seize the moment, or would the weight of opportunity slip through their fingers? The answer would shape not only Germany, but the fate of the entire world.
Germany's war machine may have been perfectly designed on paper, but theory rarely survives contact with reality. The centerpiece of Germany's strategy was the Schlieffen Plan, a bold blueprint to defeat France in a lightning campaign before turning to face Russia. The plan assumed speed, precision, and surprise could deliver a decisive blow to the Western Front in weeks. It envisioned German armies sweeping through Belgium, outflanking French defenses, and forcing Paris to surrender. On maps, the plan looked flawless. In practice, it was a gamble with consequences that no one could fully predict. Belgium, a small nation with an army tiny compared to Germany's, was supposed to be a minor obstacle. Yet Belgian resistance, unexpectedly determined, slowed the German advance. Every hour the troops were delayed allowed French and British forces to reorganize, and the carefully calculated schedule began to unravel. Germany's reliance on speed revealed a hidden vulnerability. Any disruption, however minor, could escalate into a strategic crisis. Rail timetables became battle plans, and when even a single division was late, the entire campaign risked collapse. The Germans had technical superiority and tactical skill, but the plan depended on ruthlessly precise coordination across hundreds of kilometers of front. It demanded that commanders maintain discipline under fire while following orders with near mechanical efficiency. Yet war is never so predictable. Communications faltered, roads clogged, and the human element, hesitation, misreading orders, fatigue, proved to be just as decisive as firepower. The reality of marching through foreign territory revealed the limits of even the most brilliant military mind. At the same time, early battles demonstrated Germany's potential. Rapid offensives, skilled artillery placement, and aggressive reconnaissance yielded stunning local victories. French units were forced to retreat, and German soldiers proved time and again that their training was superior to almost any opponent. Yet these successes could not compensate for the delays and errors that multiplied along the way. It was as though the plan's brilliance on paper collided with the chaos of reality, and every hour of delay tightened the grip of strategic danger. Even minor decisions had monumental consequences. Should German forces divert to support overextended units? Should they press forward despite exhaustion and stretched supply lines? Every choice carried immense weight, and each hesitation threatened to turn a rapid conquest into a grinding stalemate. The Schlieffen plan was not merely a strategy, it was a test of whether human will could match technological and organizational advantage. The early weeks of the war revealed a hard truth. Even the most sophisticated plans cannot fully account for courage, stubbornness, or miscalculation. Belgium's resistance, the unexpected coordination of Allied forces, and the minor errors of German commanders combined to halt what was supposed to be an unstoppable advance. Germany had the tools, the army, and the doctrine to achieve victory, but the question remained whether planning alone could conquer the unpredictable nature of war. As the Western Front began to solidify into trench lines that would define years of slaughter, the consequences of these early decisions became painfully clear. Germany's advantage on paper was immense, but the first gamble of the war had exposed the thin line between triumph and disaster. And the stage was set for a conflict that would consume Europe far longer than anyone imagined. By 1916, Germany's early advantages in manpower and planning were being tested in ways few had anticipated. Technology, once thought to guarantee victory, now became both a shield and a weapon of psychological terror. German engineers had pioneered aircraft like the Fokker Eindecker, giving the army its first taste of true air superiority. These planes could fire synchronized machine guns, dominating the skies and disrupting enemy reconnaissance. Soldiers on the ground felt a new kind of fear, an enemy they could neither see nor predict swooping overhead with deadly precision. Artillery, too, had evolved. German guns could unleash rapid, coordinated barrages that shattered defensive lines and terrorized infantry before the first German soldier even arrived. Every technological innovation seemed designed to tip the scales decisively in their favor. Yet even as these tools demonstrated their power, strategy and leadership remained decisive. Germany's chief of staff, Erich von Falkenhayn, conceived what he believed would be a war-winning strategy at Verdun. The plan was audacious: bleed France white by forcing them to defend a symbolically vital position, compelling the Allies to commit men and resources until exhaustion. On paper, it was ruthless genius, a war of attrition aimed at crushing morale while Germany preserved its own strength. In reality, the battle became a nightmare of mud, artillery fire, and unrelenting slaughter. The human cost was astronomical, and the French, despite horrendous losses, held firm.
What was intended as a decisive blow became a grueling stalemate that drained German resources and morale. The war had entered a new phase where advantage on paper no longer guaranteed results. Tactical brilliance had to confront the unpredictability of human endurance, weather, and geography. German troops, despite superior training and equipment, faced a battlefield where the landscape itself seemed to conspire against rapid victory. Every hill, forest, and river slowed their advance and magnified the lethality of modern weaponry. Coordination between units was vital, yet even minor mistakes could lead to catastrophe, highlighting the fragile link between planning and execution. German technological superiority also created new dilemmas. Air reconnaissance revealed enemy positions with unprecedented accuracy, but it also made German movements predictable. Artillery could devastate opposing troops, yet over-reliance on firepower sometimes replaced decisive maneuver with grinding attrition. Soldiers and commanders were caught between the power of their tools and the limitations of human judgment. Victory required not only machines and maps, but the ability to read the enemy, anticipate movements, and exploit fleeting opportunities before they vanished. Verdun, perhaps more than any other campaign, exemplified the paradox of Germany's position. With superior tactics, training, and weapons, they could inflict unimaginable losses. Yet, in attempting to control the tempo of battle, they became ensnared by the very plan meant to ensure victory. The French resilience, combined with logistical strains and mounting casualties, turned strategic advantage into a costly stalemate. Germany remained a dominant force, but the battle proved that brilliance in planning and technology could be neutralized by human will and circumstance. The lesson was clear: even the most advanced army is vulnerable when strategy fails to adapt to the chaos of war. As Verdun dragged on, the cracks in Germany's early promise became more apparent. The war was no longer a series of rapid, decisive victories, but a test of endurance, innovation, and leadership under unrelenting pressure. Germany had unmatched tools and tactics, but the path to triumph required more than firepower. It demanded foresight, flexibility, and the kind of calculated audacity that few generals could consistently achieve under the strain of a continent-wide conflict. Even the mightiest army could find itself trapped, not just by the enemy, but by the very strategies designed to secure victory.
While the Western Front ground into mud and blood, Germany's eyes turned east, where opportunity and peril coexisted in equal measure. Russia, vast and industrially underdeveloped, seemed a prize almost within reach. Its armies were enormous, but size proved to be a double-edged sword. Logistical challenges, outdated railways, and poor communication meant that Russian forces could not sustain the pace Germany could enforce. Supplies often failed to reach the front lines, and troops suffered from exhaustion, cold, and hunger long before encountering the enemy. On paper, Germany could exploit these weaknesses to crush Russia decisively, freeing resources for the Western Front. The German High Command recognized this potential and launched carefully coordinated offensives. Rapid maneuvers and superior artillery allowed them to win remarkable victories in battles like Tannenberg, where 2 Russian armies were encircled and destroyed. These victories were not merely tactical, they were psychological blows that demonstrated Germany's ability to dominate a massive adversary. Russian morale faltered, and the very idea of invincibility was shattered. Every captured soldier, every destroyed train, and every broken supply line tightened the grip Germany held over the Eastern Front. Yet, Germany's opportunity extended beyond the battlefield. Political upheaval in Russia presented a chance few generals fully anticipated. The turmoil that eventually brought Lenin back from exile threatened to unravel the Russian war effort entirely. German diplomats, intelligence agents, and strategic planners realized that a single calculated risk could hasten revolution and bring Russia out of the war. The return of Lenin in a sealed train, facilitated by Germany, was not simply a historical curiosity, it was a strategic masterstroke aimed at reshaping the balance of power on the continent. With Russia distracted by internal collapse, Germany could redirect its forces westward, potentially altering the outcome of the entire war. Despite this potential, Germany failed to fully exploit its advantages. Logistical constraints, overstretched lines, and cautious leadership meant that opportunities slipped away. While victories were impressive, the chance to deliver a knockout blow and dictate peace terms evaporated under the weight of indecision. Strategic brilliance was undermined by operational hesitation, showing that even in the East, where Germany's power was unmatched, human choices and timing determined the fate of nations. The Eastern Front also revealed the interplay between war and politics. German forces were not simply fighting Russian armies, they were shaping revolutions, influencing governments, and attempting to manipulate the very course of history. Every advance, every victory, every captured train could have been leveraged into a decisive political outcome. Yet the failure to act with the necessary speed or ruthlessness turned a near-certain advantage into a prolonged stalemate, forcing Germany to continue the struggle on multiple fronts. By the time the Bolsheviks seized power and Russia exited the war, Germany had gained territory and leverage, but at a cost. The time, men, and resources spent in the East could have been concentrated elsewhere. The war was no longer a simple calculation of industrial might and troop numbers. It had become a test of strategy, timing, and leadership under pressure. Germany's position was extraordinary, yet the lesson was clear. Strategic opportunity alone cannot guarantee victory if human judgment fails to act decisively. The Eastern Front had proven that while Germany could shape the fate of empires, it could also let history slip through its fingers, leaving potential triumph unclaimed.
By 1917, Germany's position in the war remained strong in some areas, but increasingly precarious in others. The Western Front was still bogged down in mud and trenches, and the Eastern Front had been neutralized with Russia's withdrawal. Yet a new threat loomed across the Atlantic. The United States, previously neutral, possessed industrial and military potential that could tip the scales irrevocably. Germany's leaders understood that American involvement might undo all the gains won through careful planning and hard-fought victories. In an effort to preemptively secure their position, Germany took a daring gamble. Unrestricted submarine warfare aimed to starve Britain into submission, and a secret diplomatic overture intended to draw Mexico into the conflict. The infamous Zimmermann telegram was that overture. Sent in early 1917, it proposed that if the United States entered the war against Germany, Mexico should ally with Berlin, promising the return of lost territories such as Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The plan was audacious, a high-stakes maneuver that sought to divert American attention and keep its forces occupied in the Western Hemisphere. Germany's strategists believed it could prevent American intervention long enough to achieve victory in Europe. On paper, it was a calculated risk that reflected both ambition and desperation. But plans, no matter how ingenious, can unravel in the hands of chance. British intelligence intercepted and decrypted the telegram, exposing Germany's intentions to the world. The revelation inflamed American public opinion, turning hesitation into outrage. What had been intended as a subtle strategic maneuver became a diplomatic catastrophe. Germany's gamble had backfired spectacularly. Instead of keeping the United States neutral, it hastened America's entry into the war with full industrial and military power behind the Allies. The implications were profound. Even as German armies retained tactical superiority in many sectors, the arrival of American troops and resources shifted the balance. The war, once potentially winnable on German terms, now demanded a level of endurance and adaptability beyond what the exhausted nation could sustain. Supplies, morale, and manpower, all advantages Germany had relied upon, were suddenly counterbalanced by an opponent with almost limitless industrial output and fresh troops. Decisions that might have led to victory were now overshadowed by forces beyond Germany's control. The final months of the war became a test of whether Germany could consolidate its gains, stabilize the fronts, and achieve a negotiated settlement before the weight of American power became decisive. Yet history shows that this window of opportunity closed too quickly.
Even with superior planning, disciplined troops, and technological advantages, the combination of misjudgment, chance, and timing proved fatal. Germany's strategic brilliance had been undermined by the unpredictability of global politics and the sheer scale of the conflict it had unleashed. The Zimmermann telegram exemplifies the delicate balance between strategy and circumstance. One intercepted message changed the course of history, proving that wars are not won by plans alone, but by the interaction of intelligence, timing, and human response. Germany had the potential to dominate Europe, but the convergence of miscalculation, external intervention, and relentless attrition sealed its fate. In the end, the story of 1914 to 1918 is not merely a chronicle of battles and weapons. It is a study of how advantage on paper can be rendered meaningless when human error, chance, and timing intersect, leaving even the most powerful nation vulnerable to history's unpredictable currents.